Hello, families. So in lieu of our final Zoom call, I am sending this video. Our final Zoom takes place on Mother's Day. So rather than pulling moms and dads away from celebrating the moms, I'm going to just send this message. I'd love it if this message were to be about a reflection on the beautiful things that nature taught us this year in the program. There were so many lessons that came there, but probably the prevailing and most important message is the one that I'm going to address on this call. And I'm going to invite you, as you watch this, to remember that all of us are processing what we hear and see and feel through a screen, the screen of our lives and our experiences. And we all have beliefs about what should be, what shouldn't be, the rights and the wrongs. And some of them are factual, in my opinion, when they are regarding actual harm done, right? Like this human being damaged the property of or harmed the property of, whether it's bodily property or other, physical property or even emotional space of someone else. When it comes to harm, I believe that objectively, for my intents and purposes, there is wrong done and it needs to be handled. But in our world, there is this perceptive harm that is always swirling that doesn't have necessarily factual basis, but occupies a lot of energetic space. And what I've learned this year is that when adults have not made space to be curious about their own psyche and their own way of processing what they believe to be harmful, potentially harmful, or concerning, they immediately jump to projecting that thing, that way of relating, onto another, and I'll speak specifically to me, okay? So parents who have issues that they believe either might be a concern or they worry could be a concern, and they want to find out more about it without really necessarily hard evidence that there was any harm done or that there is any harm in the scenario. They project their opinion, their beliefs onto the scenario and then land it in my lap or Miss Lauren's lap or Miss Caitlin's lap or some teacher in Soul to Soil's lap. Usually it always, obviously comes to mine. I'm the primary holder of the program. And then we are asked to hold a space to hear of that tale of potential harm, risk, or whatever. And my mistake up until this point in the program was to have compassion, that everyone is entitled to their own point of view regarding harm and what happens. And also, the idea that, I get how, this is a big leap when parents put their children into a program. There is a big leap of faith there, and that might sometimes be difficult. And there's this desire to know what's going on, especially upon receiving maybe a story from your child of something that sounds a little off, or a rumor offered by another parent. So this has happened several times, or even just your own issue with something. And so what happens is it stirs up stuff in the parent, and then it's landed on my lap. And which I accept. It's okay. I get it. Everybody's in their own level of this journey in how they evaluate the veracity or the factual nature of what they perceive. But obviously, I'm speaking to this because I've really changed my tune. I have held space for an exorbitant amount of space for these concerns. I've fielded them. I've spent my time, sometimes at really inopportune times, drop off, pick up outside of Soul to Soil, and that has harvested and extracted an enormous amount of my energy. And I don't know if this really occurs to you guys especially those of you who tend to be worriers and have come and asked me to field these concerns. If you contemplate that, like, I am a mother, and I am also somebody who, as my profession, I professionally hold space for those who are processing and dealing with these kinds of concerns. And my fundamental belief as a healer over my 20 plus year career is that these particular perceived or ways of perceiving our reality actually lead to disease. So I professionally handle these types of conversations. But for some reason in Soul to Soil, I'm asked to hold space for these outside of a professional arena and take my time away from my children, myself, my family life, my personal life, so that I can hear something that is most often not based in fact, has already been witnessed and or tended to by me, because as a whole of Soul to Soil, while we are very divergent in our ways of relating with the things that happen and harm in general, we're very free thinking that way. We are certainly not cavalier about the safety, the sense of bodily sovereignty, what happens to the children who are in our care. But I get that maybe it doesn't seem that way sometimes. And, as parents, sometimes some of you may fear that, your kids might not be getting cared for in a way that would fulfill your conditions and standards as far as whatever safety is to you. So what happens is I am asked to hear you when a lot of times I don't agree with the circumstances. I don't actually see a problem. In general, I feel like the children are not actually expressing a problem. They're perfectly healthy in their emotional way of relating. And if there were a scenario where a harm was done that was somehow missed and not dealt with, to me, the best way to build resiliency in a child and all parties involved is to immediately, as close to that now moment as possible, to field a conversation and a space where the children are invited to express whatever concerned them, wherever they felt there was an override of their sovereignty, their space, their safety, whatever it is. And by the way, rarely do the children seem to emotionally express this. It's always something said that then sounds an alarm in the parent's head that there might have been something bigger, and their child somehow is not expressing it and stuffing it down, and maybe they need to find out, and they need to collect all information, and they need to bring our attention to this and express it and take time and energy to field something that isn't necessarily factual. So I have done that for years. I've done that before Soul to Soil. I did that at my wellness studio. I've done this for, in relationships with my patients and clients. I have done this even with my own kids, my own relationships, where I've overly accommodated a perspective that was offered that was not based in fact, and actually, from my vantage point, isn't true or relevant anymore. And then because I have compassion for the feelings and the difference in viewpoint of the person that is bringing it to me, I have allowed my time and space and energy and sense of peace to be harvested and extracted from, however unintentionally. And that was a mistake. And because I did that, I'm owning that this last year was so incredibly energetically challenging and exhausting for me. Not spending time with your kids. I mean, being at Soul to Soil when I'm allowed to create and be with them, I mean, there is nothing wrong. If only you guys could be a fly on the wall. Those of you who've gotten to volunteer and witness, I can't speak for you, but like, it's so beautiful what happens here and what we offer here. Like, that my opinion is we are whole, we are beautiful, we're always growing, and I'm certainly welcoming if there's any, oversight or mistake that happens. It's not that it's unwelcome that if somebody notices it and it's factual and it's offered to me, of course I will adapt and take it in. I'm always learning, growing, and curious and willing to evolve. But these circumstances that I speak of were not those. These are entirely kind of these images developed with energies that were treated with urgency and alarm, and where I, where I didn't see the situation as factual or any of the things, or as a mistake, or as there being any deficiency on the part of what was done to handle it. And then I'm asked after the fact to somehow hold a space and hear over and over how I need to validate the veracity and the feelings of another, because I run a program, and because for some reason there's some sense of righteousness to who my time belongs to. And I guess that being a parent in this community entitles some to a certain level of my time. So that was a mistake of mine to do that, and I'm owning that I did it. And the last 2 weeks, as I've set boundaries there, very clear boundaries, and I've spoken out of loving authenticity, I have been insulted, I have been disrespected, dishonored, overridden, I've been talked about behind my back, I've been scorned, shamed, guilted, like all kinds of things. And what I do with that is I own my own reaction. That's all I do. I take ownership. Look, you know what? I allowed this in the past. Here I am setting a boundary, and people are having difficulty with it. And I, my feelings about that need to be felt, because they're remnants of some unhealed, unfelt feelings from my early life. And that's how I heal. That's what I do. But what I don't do is I don't anymore amend my behavior and accommodate these projections onto me. I'm not gonna take your stuff and tell you it's okay and validate you and take on something if you've presented to me the information and I don't agree with it. I don't find it to be true. I don't find it to be factual. And I don't believe there's any relevant evidence that there's any energy that needs to be processed, and trust that if there is a circumstance will come along that will be gentle, will not be a major lesson. But if there's a child who had an unfelt feeling or unexpressed boundary or something that went unaddressed, that there will be another opportunity to heal it. And I have trained the colleagues that I work with and myself to be really super in tune with your children, their emotions, their expressions, and the incredible brilliance that they come with. So, in other words, I haven't seen problems. And the problems that you're trying to put in my lap, some of you, and please, those of you who are not doing this, I'm not speaking to you. I want to please make sure you know that there are plenty of members of our community who are acting respectfully, in honor, and I'm certainly not wanting to silence you if ever you have a genuine, valid, factual concern. I'm speaking only to the ones that are not factual and that are presented and offered in a way that reflects that, because by the way, those concerns are also okay. I'm not trying to stifle anybody. But what I'm saying is, what I've observed is there are members of our community who are not supporting themselves and their fears and their worries. And that's dangerous. That is literally what causes disease. That's what causes stagnation in our system. Unfelt feelings are the source of every disease and trauma. I don't need to go into this. I have plenty of talks that I've given, and I plan to do more. And certainly if you are a client or patient of mine, you're well aware of this and in this work. So I don't need to spend this time clarifying that and my beliefs about that, or really how I came to that over my 20-year career supporting people in health and healing. I also am not here to field fears about, not enoughness in education. Like I've explained, I am not a conventional teacher. I am a teacher. I'm not a conventionally trained teacher, nor do I have any interest in being one. So all of the kids at Soul to Soil I see have different reading levels, writing levels, math, and I engage with your children in all of these things. But their aptitude is not going to be determined or driven by me and how much time I've sat with them tutoring in those areas, because that's not what I find valuable. I feel like those things need to be addressed on a regular basis at home, or with an intensive tutor if there's a difficulty there. But most kids who pick up on this stuff pretty quickly and naturally, like in their own time, get to reading, writing, and functional arithmetic. And what I do is beyond that. I would love for you guys to come and train your kids in those tools, which many of you do, so that they can come and I can use them to teach them actually functionally how to use them. And I work with that. So we are plentiful in what we teach. It is abundant what the kids learn here, but it's certainly not going to fill a hole if you are of a mindset where you're worried your kids aren't going to plug in the conventional check boxes. Right? That's just, I've never made that claim. So I just want to make sure that's another fear I'm not going to field. So whether it comes to a perception that there is not enough safety or there's not enough emotional support about, or there's some kind of a behavior that happened that you think should not have happened or is shameful, and that you want me to take on your beliefs to project onto that situation and those children involved, your belief. Well, that is definitely not going to happen here. And if that's your expectation, and if you feel so out of control and powerless that you want us to report to you every little thing and every little difficulty that your kid goes through by way of some kind of a reporting system or surveillance system, Soul to Soil is never going to be that. I don't know where you got the impression that's what it is. And I want to just, invite you to reconsider whether or not this is the place for you. Because I literally was so invaded this year with these energies that I contemplated not even doing Soul to Soil anymore. Not because of the children, not because of the incredible, beautiful, if you could see the beautiful stuff that we do, which you can't, and I'm not going to sit there and write reports to you guys, even with marketing and email letters. That would be nice if we had those features. I'm going to tell you, when I'm outside of here, I'm working to provide for my family, or I'm with my children. I'm here to be a mother. That's why I'm here on this earth. I do this because I really feel called to, but also to support my life as a mother, to be able to offer what I offer your children when you're not with them here, to my children. And I've been moving some really beautiful emotion. I'm so thankful to those of you. If anyone's feeling guilty for what you've landed on my lap, please don't, because it was such a gift, because I got to see how the scraps that I have given my children left over from just constantly giving my energy to others excessively where I didn't need to, and where it was really unloving of me to do so. To the person who is asking me to fulfill their need and hold a space and create some kind of fictitious sense of safety that I can never create for them, or to myself in just not being able to show up in full peace with my children. Stress and our way of relating to the needs and expectations projected onto us by the outside is the biggest thief of joy and peace and fulfillment. That's what's the danger for your children, not somebody lurking in a public bathroom, or a funny game where kids are maybe like trying to do something silly and pull pants down, or where they're playing truth or dare. Like, these kids are regularly reminded more than anywhere else in life what is loving and what is unloving. And if your beliefs differ, then you are welcome to that. You are free to go anywhere else, but you are not free to tell me what to do. And I am not going to change my actions just to make you feel better about what really, to me, are unfounded fears. This is such a safe place. I can't say it enough. It's such a safe place for your children. What's a danger, if you really look at life from a quantum perspective, and I really recommend you guys study the law of attraction a little bit. I haven't even studied it, but like from the outside and from what I found in my own exploration of quantum physics, which was actually more research-based and diverse. I kind of pieced it together myself rather than just from one teacher. My study of emotional intelligence and magnetism and frequencies and all this stuff. What creates a danger for your kids is the fear of danger. It's not actually the danger. Yes, dangers lurk in our world, but you guys are actually not even aware of the dangers that you participate in because you've been tricked into certain fears. There are things you actively do to yourselves. We do to ourselves as human beings in our environments, as I talked about in the bacterial post that if you haven't read, please read on our WhatsApp group in my response to that clickbait article that was just such an example of how people think that science is, what marketing is actually science. But we get tricked into these beliefs of these invisible invaders in our environment and these outside threats based on the anecdotal experiences of others. And because those fears activate resonant energies that were trapped and pushed down when we were much younger and haven't been resolved and cleared from our aura, we actually hold magnets that attract scary things to us. And if you think that sounds woo-woo and crazy, I don't know why you're here. I don't know why you're joining this, and if you haven't looked at your own fears and said, the fact that Marissa's not fielding this, she's a loving human being. She's not dismissive. She's not somebody who would say, oh, your stuff is not important. I'm not going to make time for you. That wouldn't be my perspective. She's obviously doing this for a reason. Maybe I need to look at what I'm trying to say to her or to Lauren or to someone else. Maybe I need to look at the amount of energy that's occupied in my worry space and how I'm just constantly trying to depend on other people to fill those holes for me, which they cannot possibly ever do. That doesn't even make, if you're talking about science, that doesn't even make scientific sense. So I say all of this to express that this has been such a beautiful experience to be with your children. There is not one child that I would ever turn away from this program. However, I will turn away parents. And I really want you to know that I don't hold it against you. And whoever is hearing this and knowing what I'm talking about, you're not the only one. It was a lot this year. I offered the time and space of the monthly Zoom. Some people barely showed up, and I get it, life, but that was your opportunity to talk to me unless you want to book my time professionally. It's unreasonable to think that I'm going to create a ton of time and space for you. And even a text or a call, unless it's a factual concern, you just don't have a right to my time. And that might feel really harsh to hear, and it might feel unloving. And I want to honor that we have a differing view there. I'm not saying you're wrong. You get to have whatever beliefs that you have, but I don't take those on. It's not my job to take those on. And just, I want to invite you to just be with yourself, be what comes up for you. And if you want to stay in this community, if you are interested in re-enrolling, the invitation will not be there with some acknowledgement that you understand what I included in this video, that you really fundamentally understand and agree to these concepts. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Doesn't mean you don't get to mess up. It's okay. It is okay. But I'm going to tell you when this is a projection, this is not a reality. I'm going to tell you that. And if you're not okay with me telling you that, and you're expecting me to hold your fear and make you feel better and validate it when I don't share it, that's not going to happen. And I need to be honest in an exchange with you about that. Soul to Soil will never be that kind of program. It would be unloving for me. I'd steal from you a really important lesson for yourself and an opportunity to see yourself if I continue to do that. And I'm going to own that this really difficult last 2 weeks of this program that have had me in a tailspin, not really able to fully show up for my own life, emotionally, for my kids, for what I have going on, that I created that. I'm going to own that it was my mistake. I allowed it, I enabled it, and I'm just not going to do it anymore. And it's okay. I say it with love. It's okay. All right. So, thank you for your courage in joining this movement. If it still aligns for you, come on for the ride. It's only getting better. Just sending love to all of you to keep doing your own work, because really we're the ones that need to learn. The kids are brilliant, and they're going to be, if they're continually nurtured in a way that is empowering, and that we keep these warnings and fears that come from injured places out of the picture when they're impure and just, a perceived solution to a danger problem that might not ever be experienced by them or you if you just tune up your energy and don't have magnets that pull these dangerous experiences in. They don't need anything more than what you're giving them. A little reading, writing, and math stuff at home here and there when they're old enough to even care about it. And then, you know, eventually they'll be able to write, they'll be able to think, they'll be able to process and discuss some of these incredibly moving and functionally relevant topics. We only teach what's functionally relevant here at Soul to Soil, and they'll be able to express themselves and resolve conflicts with others. But, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and while Soul to Soil is certainly not modeled after Rome, like the rest of the world, it's a beautiful place to be if it feels good for you, and if it doesn't, then that's totally okay too. You know, it was really lovely to have you, and it's totally okay to move on. And unless there's an acknowledgement and agreement to this, you know, video and the content in it, I mean, I won't be sending an invitation to come back. So that said, no matter what has happened, I love you. I love all of you. I love all of this world and humanity and everything that comes in it. It's a lesson. We're all evolving. It's all perfect, showing us what we need to continually evolve through and tune up so that we can eventually invite in more harmony and heavenly experiences on earth. But we're certainly not going to do it when we bend to the will of others and when we divert or diverge from our own strong alignment. My alignment and what I speak to you from is not opinion. It's absolute truth. I speak from fact. And I only make it a point to speak from that. And what I don't know, I don't know. And I'm absolutely willing to admit it. When I make a mistake, I'm willing to accept it, that I made a mistake, and I'm willing to own it. But when I don't, and when there's nothing to work on, but from your vantage point, I don't take that on anymore. So that's that. Thank you. It was a beautiful year, and I look forward to more to come.